Welcome back to another episode of Metastartup, guys. I woke up today to something really funny. Somebody on my Instagram had sent me a message with an image of an ad they'd seen while scrolling Instagram. The ad was from a top B school in India. I'm not going to take names. The B school was essentially offering to teach people how to continue the legacy of their father's or their mother's family business. It was a 2-year course, but the only catch was that it cost 40 lakhs over 2 years to do the course. And as I went through the course material, I realized, hey, if I put 10 minutes into this, I can basically compress that entire course into just 10 minutes and make a deck out of it. So I said, you know what, I gotta put this on YouTube for free. So in this video, I'm gonna teach all of you guys and girls who are part of family businesses or who own family businesses to digitally upgrade it and make it future-proof. So regardless of what kind of business your parents own, it could be a textile business, it could be, logistics or a food business, we're going to talk about how we can extend its reach and make it viable for at least another 20 to 30 years. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Metastartup. In this episode, we're going to talk about how to upgrade your family business. Now, for those of you tuning in right now, Metastartup is a course that takes you from scratch to finish when it comes to running a startup. You don't need an MBA. This one's free. It's completely open source, and you can find out more at metastartup.org or on my Instagram at instagram.com/thevarunmayya. So moving forward, in this deck, I want to talk to you about how you should upgrade your family business. Now, the reason you should upgrade your family business is because everyone else is already on it. If you're thinking about upgrading your family business now, you are already late to the party. What we're going to be doing is essentially employing a bunch of technology and building a brand so that we're on par with some of the best technology companies in the world. Now there's a bunch of information on the right, and we're going to go through it as we go through the slide deck. But in general, there's a lot of work on building a web presence. There's a lot of work on building an email list. There's a lot of work on strengthening your relationships. And then, of course, doing sales and tracking those sales and automating the entire process of running a business. So going to the first slide, which is called basic information, I'm going to be talking about why your family business needs to go digital. The main reason family businesses are going digital is because people are Googling everything they buy. Google before buy is the norm. So even if you're buying something like textiles, you will go to Google and actually Google it, right? And you might think the old generation doesn't do this anymore, but even they have started using Google as a tool to do research on a company. Sellers are noticing this, and because they know that other sellers are around, they are trying to get cheaper. Back in the day, there was something called information disparity, which is when a seller is selling something, the buyer doesn't know the real value or the real price of it. So I can sell you a used car, but I could tell you that the car works completely fine, but maybe the gear of the car doesn't work. But the buyer doesn't know that. In the age of Google, it's very easy for you to do your research and figure out which companies are honest and which companies are dishonest. Which also means that you can find out which company products are overpriced and which company products are underpriced. So all the buyers will eventually go to companies that have products that are well priced, which is why all the sellers that used to be expensive are now getting cheaper, simply because the buyer has options. Because of this, sellers also have to reduce costs. When sellers were selling products for high prices, they could keep their costs also pretty high. But today, with the margins coming down, they have to become more capital efficient, which means that they have to now, cut off excess costs on the logistics. They have to cut off excess costs on the distribution. So they have to cut off costs in multiple different places. Expansion is easier than ever. So if a seller today wants to sell in a new city, he just has to find the right distribution channel or the right partner to make that happen for him. So the minute you've become serious about running your family business, there is one really important undertaking that you have to do, which is to do research. Research is critical, but you need something called a sample size. Now, a lot of people call 1 or 2 people, right? 1 or 2 customers, and they ask those 1 or 2 customers a few questions, and then they come to the conclusion that, the customer said this or the customer said that. But in science, we have something called a sample size, or rather in statistics, we have something called a sample size, which means that if you want to take a survey, you need to have a minimum number of people taking the survey to make any good or useful assumptions. Here's the process. You simply call your existing customers and you ask them 2 questions. What is your biggest pain point when it comes to buying something? And how can I make your experience of buying something better? Now, this object that you're buying make sure that when you have this call with these people, you make the call specific to your object. So if you're selling, say, textiles, then you have to ask them, what is your pain point when it comes to buying textiles, and how can I make your experience of buying textiles better? If you don't want to get on a call with them, you can use SurveyMonkey or Google Forms. Google Forms is free. But I prefer that you guys do this on a call, because you also get a feel of the entire market when you speak to 10 to 20 different people. Don't take everybody seriously, because some of those people might just be like, I want it at 50% off. But that's not possible, that's not feasible. So make sure you take everybody's opinion with a grain of salt. But if there are a lot of people telling you something and you think that it's an important thing to pay attention to, then maybe that's worth noting. Remember, a sample size of 10 to 20 is a good starting number. If you can get on the call with 10 to 20 different customers and try to get a feel of what they're thinking, then you have a good basis to figure out what you want to do next. The next almost non-negotiable thing in 2018 or 2019 now is to build a web presence. A web presence is absolutely mandatory. Back in the day, and by the day I'm talking about before the invention of the internet, in a lot of these events, in a lot of these offline meetups, brochures used to be the norm. People would give out flyers and brochures, and that is the only way you knew visually about some other company. Today, you need a website to do the same thing for you. A website is your digital brochure. A simple website, which is well designed and gets the point across, will do. You don't need to make it fancy. You just need to get the point across. What are your products? What do they cost? You don't even need to have an e-commerce website or have them buy the product online. A phone number or an email contact information would do. Use Webflow rather than hiring an agency. A typical agency will cost you anywhere between 1 to 2 lakhs. And I'm talking about a decent agency. Will cost you anywhere between 1 to 2 lakhs to upgrade your digital presence or to make you a website. But using Webflow, you can do all of this for free. Webflow has 1,000 or even more templates that you can just utilize, and you can change things as necessary, and you can use images. It's like using Paint. It is extremely simple to use, and I put up a tutorial on it. All you have to do is click on that link in the presentation, and you'll be able to go learn more about how to use Webflow. There's an in-depth tutorial that I've made for this. You don't need to know any code for this. The last thing that you need to take care of are something called meta tags. Now, meta tags are what are shown when somebody Googles you, and this is the meta description we're talking about. So when somebody Googles your company, they will see a certain snippet on Google. What you need to do is you need to make sure that snippet puts all your talking points across very quickly. So if you're the #1 agency in the world for real estate, you need to mention that in that snippet. Right? The snippet is basically a preview, and most people don't even click through into your company. They will just look at the snippet, and if the snippet doesn't seem exciting enough, they will just move on to the next search result. The next thing you need to do is build an email list. Now, this email list is not to reach new customers, but to engage existing customers. A lot of people forget, or a lot of businesses forget, that their existing customers have money on them. Right? They always want to look for new business where they don't look at optimizing or improving the quality or the revenue potential from their existing clients. Until now, what I've seen is that a lot of people just use WhatsApp or SMS forwards to announce new things that happen in their business. So if you're a textile manufacturer and you've announced, say, a new line of polyesters, I've seen a lot of these people use a WhatsApp forward and just say, this business has just introduced polyesters, which is not a very professional thing to do. And it seems kind of needy when you only send out these outreaches when you need something, right? When you need them to buy, or when you have an announcement to make. What you should do is have a join newsletter button on your website where anybody who looks at your website can opt in to the announcements that you make. But what we're going to do is not just put out announcements, we're also going to put out good, high quality content. Now remember, this email list doesn't have to be big. It could be just 100, or even if like 25 people on it makes a lot of sense, because you're going to continuously keep re-engaging these 25 people over the year. Every month, we're going to shoot across one email to them, and you never know, maybe 6 or 7 months later, they might reply to an email saying they have an opportunity, right? So it doesn't have to be a big email list, but obviously the bigger, the better. So talking about email content, only announcements will bore and irritate existing customers. Like I said, it's extremely needy. All you have to do is send out good content. Now there's a newsletter that I've been following for a long time. It's called CV Insights. click on the link in the presentation and subscribe to their newsletter to see the kind of content that they send you. Their content is engaging, it's fun, it's got data, it's got relevant data, and sometimes they'll put out a meme or two. Now you might think memes are unprofessional, especially when you're digitizing an age-old business. But remember, even these business decision makers are human, right? So make the newsletter engaging. People refresh their Facebook feed because they want more content. If you're providing relevant content about their industry, it makes a lot of sense to them to read through that content. What they want to see is data, trends, funny stuff, and personal and success stories. Now, obviously, you can't sell a real estate firm a dental success story, right? Or you can't sell a bakery a home buying success story. So make sure it's relevant to their industry. You might have to put out video. Video content is amazing for this. Check out something called BombBomb or Vidyard to put out video content in emails. A small video or a testimonial of one of your customers who's succeeded, who's used your textile products or bought some real estate from you and seen an uptick. You want to get these guys on camera with their testimonial. Send these newsletters once a month. You never know when a customer might have a need. At Avalon, we call this the drip feed method. We keep sending out emails on a certain drip, which is once every month, because you never know. 6 or 7 months down the line, the customer might say, hey, I've been seeing your newsletters for a while. Do you want to collaborate with me on X? Or can I buy Y from you? Right? So you never know when an opportunity might come up, which is why email is good to keep yourself in the back of somebody else's head. The next thing you want to do is strengthen existing relationships. You have those current customers and you don't want to lose them. In fact, existing customers are your best foolproof against the recession. You have to keep these decision makers happy because the final decision to buy something or to enter a partnership is always an emotional one. Here's what I'd do. I'd invite them over to lunch and then I'd give them a printed card with their name or face on it. We call this personalization, and personalization works much better than just handing out mass flyers that you printed a couple of months ago. It has to be relevant to them. Add a handwritten note thanking them for their loyalty to your brand and thanking them for being a part of your journey, and also ask for introductions. The minute you give them this card with a handwritten note, tell them, do you think you can introduce me to 2 or 3 people in your network that might need my services or my products? Now, so far we've spoken about warm outreaches, and the difference between warm and cold is that warm outreaches mean that you already know these people or you got an introduction to these people from somebody they know and somebody you know. So a mutual connection is introduced to you guys. Whereas with cold outreaches, you are reaching out to these people without them having any knowledge of you. What you need to do cold outreaches is get an email and a phone database and get a computer with email and a phone number. All you have to do is get an Indian database, sites like foxbound.io, which is an Avalon investment. Have an Indian database. Otherwise, you can just find a lot of relevant sites with a database of people you want to contact. It might take you, a couple of days to go through the internet and find all the real estate companies in India that you want to contact with their phone numbers and email IDs. And it might take you a little more homework to call those numbers, because those numbers will be the help desk numbers or an assistant numbers, and try to get a decision maker's number. This entire process will take you a week. It's called cleaning your database. You load up these emails and phone numbers into an Excel sheet. For advanced users, use Salesforce, because if you have multiple sales reps sending out outreaches, you want to make sure that these people are not crossing over, and you also have a zoomed out view of everything that the team is doing. Now, the word CRM basically means customer relationship management, right? So these are CRM tools that you'll be using to manage your relationship with these potential customers. Send at least 500 emails a month. That should be your minimum bucket. Some people send even more emails a month. Follow up every 14 days if there's no response. There are a lot of email automation tools out there. Foxbound can already do email automation, but maybe you want to use a lightweight tool like Mailshake. I put up a tutorial on this. Just click on this link, this watch my tutorial link, to see how we send out cold emails at Avalon. Your email should be 3 parts. The first line should be an intro, 2 lines of why this email is relevant to you, and a 3-line value prop. The value prop basically means these are the things that we're offering. The second part, why this email is relevant to you, is more about why they are receiving the email. Maybe you read in the news that they want something, or maybe you heard in the neighborhood that they want something, which is why it's important to have customer intelligence. The more you know about a customer, the easier it is to sell to that particular customer. And please do not spam. It's very easy to keep sending an email every 2 days. You will just piss off customers. Don't do it. One thing I forgot to mention is that your contact information has to be in the signature of your email. You don't want your email to be very long. Very long emails look like spam. So what you need to do is keep just 3 parts of the email and leave the contact information for the footer or your signature. The next bit is cold calling. Now I'm sure all of you have received cold calls, right? Somebody calls you saying, "Hello sir, would you want to buy something like this?" And as much as cold calling is annoying, it actually works. What you need to do is cold call well. You need to cold call like an executive, like a professional, which means you don't start the call with a "hello sir." What you need to do is start with a name and why you called. So if you know that Raj has been looking for textiles, pick up the phone and say, "Raj, I know you've been looking for textiles, and if you got 5 minutes, I have a really exciting proposition for you." Write a script and read it from in front of you. You will forget. If you do cold calls back to back to back, after the third or fourth cold call, you will kind of realize that you are losing the script, or you're saying the wrong thing, or you're misspelling words, or your grammar is going haywire. So write this down and read from it in front of you. Do not sell on your first cold call. If you say something like, "Sir, can you buy this?" on the first cold call, it will never work out. Instead, use the word exploratory conversation. Say something along the lines of, "Raj, I know you've been looking for textiles, and if you got 5 minutes, I have a very exciting proposition for you." And then he tells you something, and then you respond with, "Look, I'm only trying to have an exploratory conversation. We only work with people that we are confident working with and that we can actually deliver to. And I just want to have an exploratory conversation about whether this makes sense for both of us." Do not act like you're obviously selling something to somebody, because nobody likes that. Ask questions, let them do the talking. These are called trap setting questions, which basically mean you ask the other person a particular question and you want to hear a particular answer. So for example, if you want them to buy textiles, you say, "So what are the problems you have with your existing textile manufacturer?" And they say a few things, and then you catch them on those few things. So if you eventually want to say, "My textile manufacturer is delivering to me too slowly," keep pulling the conversation in the direction of textiles and speed. And set this trap setting question, which is, what happens if you don't get your textiles on time? How much money do you lose? Do you want to trial an alternative that promises you textile delivery within a certain set amount of time so you lose no money? And people want to have exploratory conversations around this. If the prospect is interested, go meet them and present a deck. There is too much noise and you cannot expect any deal to close over the internet, especially in a legacy business or an old school business. You need to meet these people and you need to go with a PowerPoint presentation. The next thing you can optimize is you can automate a lot of things and track sales. Move things from paper to Excel. Paper is the lagging factor in every legacy business. Once things have made it to Excel, start moving to CRMs. CRMs are customer relationship management tools, like I mentioned before. They help you optimize things even further than what Excel would. Excel is still a low power tool compared to something like Salesforce. Anything on paper is bad. Avoid paper. Set KPIs. Now, key performance indicators, I'm sure you guys have heard this word before. The revenue, the total quantity sold, profit margin, logistic costs, etc. are KPIs. Some KPIs need to be increased and some need to be decreased. The costs, for example, need to be decreased. So you need to set KPIs for yourself and for your team and try to hit those KPIs. The only way you will know you are hitting a particular KPI is if you actually are tracking these on a CRM. Use Zapier for automation. Things like posting to social media or an HR contract. You can use Zapier for all of this. It makes a lot of sense to automate some of the small tasks. Make sure you use HR and payroll software like SumHR. Use CRMs like Pipedrive and Salesforce. Use Zoho invoicing software, and invoicing basically means when you're sending out a bill, if you're doing this on a piece of paper and then scanning it, that is slow, that is inefficient, that's going to delay things. Use an online invoicing software. Do not be afraid to use something like DocuSign for contracts. I know a lot of legacy businesses that are scared of using digital signatures, but the world has moved to digital signatures, and in fact, digital signatures are harder to forge than pen and paper signatures, right? Pen and paper signatures are actually very easy to copy. You can just trace over it. Whereas with DocuSign, these are digitally signed with a timestamp and is unique to a particular ID with two-factor security. So make sure you start using DocuSign and convince all the people you're working with to use DocuSign as well. Try to get rid of paper. Also, don't forget to get a payment gateway like CitrusPay or CC Avenue. When you invoice a client, they still need to go to the bank or write you a check, and that process still takes 4 or 5 days. If they do a bank wire, they still need to add you as a beneficiary. All of this takes time. Instead, give them a payment gateway where they can just swipe their card online, which is put their card details, their company card details, and a PIN so that the payment can be done within a few seconds. People are lazy, and during that period of laziness, people might double take their decision, which means that maybe I'm too lazy to do a bank transfer, and in those 2 or 3 days that I take to do a bank transfer, I might change my mind. People are fickle and you need to convert them as soon as possible. Finally, create training materials for vendors to use your software. A lot of vendors don't understand how to use a phone well. Even though that's changing, you need to make sure you have videos on how to use these different softwares because they're not very difficult. A payroll software or a CRM is not difficult to use at all. Anybody who knows how to use a phone and type on a phone will be able to use a CRM. What you need to do is create a very specific video on how to use it. And this is not very difficult. You can shoot this video with a phone. You don't have to make a high quality video. Remember, you're not impressing anybody with this. You're trying to teach people things, just the way I'm teaching you this. In the next section, we're going to quickly go over setting objectives. You need to meet with all the key employees one-on-one. Now remember, there's an age difference between you and some of the key talent in your company, which means that you might be a 25 or a 27-year-old, but some of the talent might be in their 30s or even in their 40s. So it might seem awkward to get into a one-on-one meeting and set the KPIs. In which case, what you should do is get them in a room, close the door, and ask them to set KPIs for themselves. Which means you ask them, what do you think you're capable of? Can we both be accountable for it? Use the word accountable. Can we both be accountable for these KPIs? And they will put a certain set of KPIs. For example, if it's the logistics guy, he will say, okay, I'm going to try to bring the logistics cost by 10% this year, down by 10% this year. So you print those out, you keep one copy with you and one copy with them so that they have a North Star. A North Star basically means they have something to look forward to. They have something to achieve, a target, a goal. And goals and targets for every single person one-on-one is important. I see a lot of legacy businesses with business targets, but if you ask each individual person what their targets are, they probably can't answer you. I know in the 1990s, business owners were very uncomfortable sharing their P&L sheets with their employees, but I think times have changed and everybody knows how to get access to the profit and loss sheets of the previous year. It's not a very difficult task. You can do it on the MCA. But using your profit and loss sheets is a great idea because you will be able to show these people and show and tell these people how their actions in the previous years have impacted the business and how you expect their actions to increase profits or decrease losses in this year. Always involve them in the conversation and ask them what can improve. The next thing is to run ads. This is fairly obvious. A lot of smaller buyers don't use social media, so it might not make total sense, but bigger buyers definitely use LinkedIn. Use account-based marketing techniques, which are basically super personalized techniques to reach very, very specific company decision makers. It's on my Instagram, take a look at it. Your cost of acquisition should never drive you into a loss. Your cost of acquisition plus your cost to acquire material, plus your cost of manufacturing, plus your cost of delivery, so on and so forth, should never drive you into a loss. Usually, the cost of acquisition should be less than 2 to 5% of your entire goods value. Experiment, measure, and repeat. Keep experimenting again and again and again with different type of ads because you never know which ad works best. In my experience, video ads and testimonials work absolutely the best. All traffic must be sent to your website. So when somebody clicks on the ad, it needs to go to your website. And on the website, because we had the join newsletter form, as well as maybe a contact form that takes their phone number and an email, make sure you get their phone number and an email. Because once you get a phone number and an email, you can continuously drip them month over month like we've spoken about in the past. 500 rupees per day is a great starting budget. Now, this isn't a one-size-fits-all starting budget, but a lot of people ask me, what starting budget do I start at? And my answer to this, my standard answer to this is 500 rupees a day. Try 500 rupees a day on Facebook and see how it works. Try 500 rupees a day on LinkedIn and see how it works. It might take up to a week to optimize. So both Facebook and LinkedIn have an optimization process, and you need to make sure that you give it some time to be able to optimize. Now, a lot of MBAs will teach you advertising strategy, how to put out advertising material, how to convince people, how to do audience targeting. But the fact is that today, a lot of the audience targeting bits are automated already. So you don't need to learn them. You just need to know that you need to create the first persona of your customer. And if you already have done your research, you know what that persona is. Expansion specifically happens through distribution channels. You need distribution to expand. Now, just like we made a slide deck for our business, we also need to make a partnership slide deck. All you have to do, it could be like 5 or even 10 slides, what's in it for you and what's in it for them. Again, we repeat the same process of booking meetings through cold calls, cold emails and referrals, but this time we're not selling somebody anything. We're going there to speak about a partnership or a distribution channel. The advantage of distribution is that somebody else is selling for you. You're leveraging somebody else's network and they take a cut of it. So it makes a lot of sense for you to first test new waters. So if you're a trader that sells in Bangalore, you might want to try selling in Mumbai or in Delhi through another distributor. And if you reach a certain scale, it might make sense for you to set up an office there and handle the distribution yourself. So distribution is a great way to trial things. Close these partnerships fast. And by close these partnerships fast, I mean get them to sign something within 1 or 2 weeks of speaking to them. Do this on DocuSign because in real life, just signing something and scanning it takes 1 or 2 weeks because people are busy and people are lazy. Whereas DocuSign allows you to get an instant signature. The minute you close the partnership, announce them. Like I said, you have a newsletter. So go ahead and tell everybody associated with the newsletter what you're up to and what the partnership entailed. When people know you've got into a partnership and they are familiar with the other company or the other party in the partnership, they will come and they will speak to you either to congratulate you or because they have a query. The next thing is networks, right? You need to build a physical presence, and a physical presence builds you a brand. You need to be there or send someone to every industry event. Keep tabs on every industry event. Now, how do you know which industry events are relevant to you and how do you know when they're coming up? The right way to do this is to use Google Alerts. I'm not going to help you on this. Just go to Google and type Google Alerts and it will run you through a process where you can set up alerts for certain keywords. Make sure you set up keywords for the words events, for say textiles if you're in the textile industry, and for your city, say Bangalore if you're in Bangalore. When you go to an event, make sure you exchange cards, but more important than the card is exchanging a number and an email. If you do not get a person's number and an email and only get their card, it is not as useful because the other person does not have your number or your email stored on their phone. You need to make sure that they have your number stored on their phone, so when you call them, it doesn't seem like it's a random number calling. That is the number one most important thing I tell my sales reps when they go for events. Make sure that when you call a potential customer, your name is saved on their phone. Always refer to the event in your first email or call to them. I think this should be call. Let me just change that very quickly. So always refer to the event. This builds familiarity because a lot of these busy people get a lot of emails per day, and to break through the noise, you need either a referral or you need to mention to them something that will catch their eye. If they've been to a particular event and they recognize the name of the event, then you being in their email and mentioning that event triggers an unconscious response. Set a KPI of getting at least 50 numbers per event. A KPI, like I mentioned, is a key performance indicator. Make sure you tell everybody in your team, especially if you're a team of 3 or 4 people that go to an event, to get at least 50 numbers or more if it's a bigger event, because that's 50 opportunities. Maybe only 10% of those opportunities will go into a deal, but that is still an opportunity because as a family business, because you're making bulk orders, you don't need too many opportunities. You just need a few good ones. So that's it for this quick primer on how to upgrade your family business. All of these sections, whether it be cold calling, cold emailing, advertisements, networks, we're going to go through all of that in depth in the Metastartup course. If I've saved any of you from going to a business school just to learn how to upgrade your family business, then I consider my job done. Metastartup will have all the content necessary. We will expand on every slide in this deck through the rest of the course. So I want you to make sure you take a look at the rest of the course if you're interested. Now, all of this content was free, but I'll need a favor. In 2018, Avalon invested in 6 companies, and most of these investments were made from our own revenues. This year, we're raising a second fund and we're investing in several more companies. Now, like I told you, this content is free. I don't expect anything in return. But if this content helped, if it's helped your business even a little bit, I'd like you to schedule a meeting between my COO, Shashank, and a decision maker from your business. It could be your father, it could be your uncle, whoever it is. If you can make this introduction to a family business for us, just CC Shashank at avalonlabs.co in any email with a decision maker, manager or CEO of that business. We'd be super thankful for you. We're building an electronic registry of all the family offices in India and unifying them so that we can launch a bigger fund on top of them. To do this, we'll need introductions, and the best way to get these introductions is through you guys, especially if you enjoyed and value this content. Alright guys, that's it for me, and be sure to tune into the rest of Metastartup because we have some exciting content, especially more in-depth content on how to build a website, how to do cold calls, how to write cold emails. We're going to go through all of those things in depth throughout the course. So make sure you follow me on Instagram and tune into my YouTube channel, which means subscribe. So guys and girls, next time you see an ad that promises to teach you something and you really want to learn it, just DM it to me on Instagram. And if the topic is interesting enough, I'll probably cover the entire course syllabus by myself within 10 or 20 minutes. This is me calling it a day. Go make your family proud. And if they ask you how you did it, tell them I learned it for free on metastartup.org.